regarding the relocation of people of Gaza in Libya, this story has been already rejected by American sources as well as by Arab sources. It is a completely bizarre story. It makes no sense at all. Libya itself has been experiencing a civil conflict for the last 14 years. There is no stability in the country. I cannot imagine either a single Palestinian agreeing to go to Libya or a single Libyan agreeing to welcome Palestinians into Libya. Gulf is looking at ensuring that they continue to have substantial ties with this erratic president. He continues to value them insofar as their political and security interests are concerned. So there is a mutual benefit. The reassurance of American support to the royal families ruling the three countries, and you have in turn the boosting of the personal and the boosting of the status and achievements of the American president. I don't think it is based in reality. What you find astonishing throughout this period is no serious mention of any of the issues that are agitating the region. The issues relating to Gaza, the issues relating to Palestine. This is not mentioned at all. Just when the president was leaving Abu Dhabi, a journalist pointed out to him that there is hunger in Gaza. And the man said, "Yes, I have heard about it. I will do something about it," and rapidly got into his aircraft and disappeared. This doesn't give me any encouragement to believe that something important and serious is being considered in Washington. I am convinced in my mind that that Ahmad Ashara is the instrument for the regime change that took place in Damascus. They have now installed a US oriented puppet in Damascus, and I would not be surprised if Ahmad Ashara announces normalization of relations with Israel in the near future.
Hello, good evening and a very warm welcome. For our next face-to-face, I have with me our guest, Diplomat Talmiz Ahmad, who has served as ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the UAE. He is also regarded as a noted expert of Middle East affairs. Today, I'm going to discuss with him on President Trump's, who has cut off his communication with Netanyahu, also Trump's visit to the Gulf countries and its impact, his plan to relocate 1 million Palestinians to Libya, his Gaza plan, shift in American foreign policy, and above all, on the future of Palestine. Welcome, sir, to our next episode of
Thank you very much.
Insights. Pleasure to have you in our show.
Thank you.
So, before trying to understand the meaning of President Trump's visit to Gulf countries, I would like to have your reaction on the news report that communication between Donald Trump and Netanyahu has been ended because Donald Trump feels that Netanyahu is manipulating him. How would you like to respond to that?
I would hesitate to go to the extent that you have mentioned that communication has ended. There are suggestions that Trump could be dissatisfied with Netanyahu reneging on the ceasefire agreement that the Trump administration had promoted in January and continuing the conflict in Gaza. As you know, not only since March, there has been no break in the attacks that Israel has launched upon Gaza. And every day we get reports of 50 to 100 people being killed. We have also seen the complete blockade of all humanitarian assistance into Gaza, because of which the enclave is facing humanitarian crisis in the shape of a famine, which has been mentioned even by Israeli sources. Above all, Israel has now launched a major military strike. They say that this is against Hamas targets, but as we have seen over the last year and a half, overwhelmingly Palestinians, ordinary Palestinians, particularly women and children, have been brutally murdered by the Israeli war machine. So I can imagine that Trump is dissatisfied with the present situation, but he has made no public statement so far, either criticizing Netanyahu's actions or calling upon Israel to end the military assault on Gaza and immediately open the humanitarian route. Therefore, I am not particularly impressed with what is happening. It appears more as if the American president is sulking or he doesn't want to bring the Israel scenario into the picture. He wanted his visit to the Gulf to go satisfactorily and therefore did not an embarrassing issue like what Israel is doing in West Asia, particularly in Gaza, did not fit in with the theatrics and the optics of the visit and was not mentioned. To say that there is a breakdown, total breakdown in communication between the United States and Israel or between the president and the prime minister, I think would be an exaggeration. The ties between the two countries are very substantial and they could easily be recovered at some stage. We will wait and see in this regard. So I'm not particularly impressed or optimistic about the US approach to the region just yet. I need to see concrete action by the Americans, actually remonstrating with Netanyahu for reneging on the ceasefire agreement, his violence against the people of Palestine, and the denial of humanitarian assistance, unless I see evidence of strong US intervention on these matters, I will not be able to say that there is a real estrangement between the United States and Israel.
Okay, sir. I would also like to know, is there any kind of shift in US policy in resolving Palestinian crisis? Because there are reports that President Trump was to announce US recognition of Palestinian state. There are also reports that Donald Trump is planning to relocate 1 million Palestinian to Libya. How would you see this development?
Firstly, with regard to the normalization of US ties with Syria, I now believe, looking back, that at least from 2019, Ahmad Ashara, in those days he was called Abu Muhammad Jolani, had been co opted by the Americans, possibly through their intelligence services, and with the full knowledge and approval and support of Turkey. There was a stalemate in Syria at that time, but at that time, the rebel forces were withering away. Syria had been brought into the Arab mainstream, but at the same time, it had retained very close ties with Iran. Gaza war, when the axis of resistance was severely damaged, and at that time we also know that Iran had been adversely affected. Taking into account the distraction of Russia and the serious damage done to Iranian capabilities, I think Turkey, the United States, and to some extent Israel realized this would be a golden opportunity for a regime change. And that is what we have seen. But astonishing for a person who had such a spent several decades as a jihadi, initially as a right hand of al-Baghdadi, later on a jihadi affiliated with Al-Qaeda, the leader of Jabhat Nusra. It is surprising that the man who had a bounty of $20 million on his head should meet within 3 or 4 months of his rehabilitation, should meet the US president for half an hour. I am convinced in my mind that that Ahmad Ashara is the instrument for the regime change that took place in Damascus. They have now installed a US oriented puppet in Damascus, and I would not be surprised if Ahmad Ashara announces normalization of relations with Israel in the near future. When you say that Trump has no communication with Israel, do remember that during his meeting with Ahmad Ashara in Riyadh, he specifically told him to normalize relations with Israel. The second part of your question regarding the relocation of people of Gaza in Libya, this story has been already rejected by American sources as well as by Arab sources. It is a completely bizarre story. It makes no sense at all. Libya itself has been experiencing a civil conflict for the last 14 years. There is no stability in the country. I cannot imagine either a single Palestinian agreeing to go to Libya or a single Libyan agreeing to welcome Palestinians into Libya. I think this is what some of those bizarre stories that you are constantly getting from that region as part of fake news. And I think this is fake news and we should ignore it entirely. A relocation of 1 million people in this day and age, people who have done no wrong, people who have been suffering the brutal violence of the Israelis, should lose their second home. It is their refugee. Most of the people living in Gaza are already refugees. That they should now be relocated, that is not acceptable. And I don't think a single Arab country in the region will extend any support.
Coming back to Trump's visit, what is your reading from Donald Trump visit to Gulf countries, and what could be its implication in Middle East, ongoing Israel-Palestinian conflict, and most importantly on Iran?
Donald Trump's visit to the Gulf is directly linked with the president's attempts to boost his support base in the United States. He wants to project to his constituency that he is a great deal maker, that he is working full time for the interests of the American people, and that the investments that he obtains from the Gulf will be utilized to boost the American economy. I think this is his core purpose. The leaders of the Gulf have fully understood this purpose. They have also understood the personality and the priorities of the American president, and they have given him the pomp and opulence that he wanted and the multi-billion dollar mouth-watering multi-billion dollar deals that he desperately needed. This has been done. According to me, the figures that have been touted in the public domain have no relation with reality. I don't think those nowadays they have stopped using the word billion, they have started using the term trillion. Trillion is 1,000 billion. I don't think that kind of money exists anywhere. I don't think the Arab countries concerned have these kind of resources available with them. I am very skeptical about any of this large sums of this large portions of this money actually being utilized. It is for headline capturing in a certain very specific context. What is the Gulf looking at? The Gulf is looking at ensuring that they continue to have substantial ties with this erratic president. He continues to value them insofar as their political and security interests are concerned. So there is a mutual benefit. the reassurance of American support to the royal families ruling the three countries, and you have in turn the boosting of the personal and the boosting of the status and achievements of the American president. I don't think it is based in reality. What you find astonishing throughout this period is no serious mention of any of the issues that are agitating the region. The issues relating to Gaza, the issues relating to Palestine. This is not mentioned at all. Throughout the visit of Donald Trump to the Gulf, every day Israel continued its violence in Gaza and was killing 50 to 100 people. Every day you saw on television hundreds and hundreds of little Palestinian children desperately searching for food. It contrasted very seriously with the opulence and luxury of the palaces of the Gulf, that you have these Arab children who have been so badly treated, who have lost large numbers of their family members, begging for food because of Israeli blockade. None of this was mentioned throughout the visit. It makes no sense to me. These are the issues that should have captured the headlines, not those bogus references to various agreements that have no relation with reality.
Many believe that President Trump is trying to rewrite American foreign policy. Is it true? Because we all know that Trump is highly unpredictable, and it is because it is evident from his dealing with Syria and also his flip-flop in tariffs.
The term rewriting American foreign policy suggests an element of reflection, consultation, a development of a long term vision, and finalization of a strategic approach. None of these aspects can in any way realistically be linked with the actions and the personality of the American president. They are totally alien to his personality. His personality is basically concerned with a very high level of self-centeredness bordering of megalomania. He likes spectacle, he likes theater, in both of which he should be the central figure. The Gulf countries have obliged him in this regard. But let us not read anything more beyond theater and play acting. Let us not imagine that there is something more serious, something more profound, something more valuable in these antics. There is nothing more than play acting on the Gulf stage. It is fully understood by the region, by the people of the region, and by their rulers. They pandered to his personality. They had no expectation of anything more than that. They used the language and the actions that please him. That is all. A new direction to American foreign policy, I have seen no evidence of that. Here is a person who believes that he has the great ability to solve some of the most intractable issues in the world. But do remember, this is the same president who a short while ago spoke about removing the people of Gaza from Gaza without mentioning where they would go, creating a Riviera of the Middle East in Gaza. An extraordinary insensitivity given the fact that 70 to 80,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza by military assault, overwhelmingly on the basis of American equipment. I have not heard any reference from the Trump administration that they are reviewing weapon supplies to Israel, that they have demonstrated with Netanyahu the violation of the ceasefire agreement that he had agreed to solemnly. We have not heard about the revival of the humanitarian corridor. Just when the president was leaving Abu Dhabi, a journalist pointed out to him that there is hunger in Gaza. And the man said, "Yes, I have heard about it. I will do something about it," and rapidly got into his aircraft and disappeared. This doesn't give me any encouragement to believe that something important and serious is being considered in Washington.
Okay, so finally, what do you think that the United States should play in resolving Israel-Gaza conflict? Should America take a more active part in mediating a peace agreement if President Trump has really emerged as a champion of ceasefire between India and Pakistan?
Donald Trump loves posturing. He recognizes he has made certain statements in public about the India-Pakistan divide, the conflict, the recent conflict, which we have very rightly found extremely offensive. But he had continued to repeat them to the extent that he repeated them again in Gaza, knowing full well that they have very little relation to the truth. He has talked about the India and Pakistan ending their conflict and hostilities because of his threat about trade. This is complete nonsense and does not indicate a serious approach to serious issues. I do not believe in this background that we should have any expectation relating to the ability of the president or his country to do anything significant or important with regard to addressing the Palestine issue. If you ask me what I would like to see, I would like to see a very strong American public posture confronting Netanyahu, exposing the violence that he has perpetrated in the region. You know that he cannot afford the ending of violence in Gaza even for one day because he is leading a right wing constituency, a right wing cabinet that will not allow him to end the war. They are xenophobic and extremely violent and racist individuals whom he has put together in his council of ministers, and he is their hostage. The minute he ceases to be prime minister, two things will happen. Number one, there will be an inquiry about the political failures, largely on his part, that led to the Hamas attack on 7th October. And the second will be his appearance before the court on charges of corruption and misconduct in public office. He cannot afford any of this. Therefore, the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank have to pay with their lives in order to maintain this prime minister in office. I cannot. This is what a serious American leadership would call out for. I have seen no evidence that they are either capable of or interested in doing any of this. Therefore, I do not believe that there is going to be any significant change in the US approach to the Palestine issue.
So, are you in any way surprised from the Donald Trump's visit that these Gulf countries have not raised the issue of Gaza with President Trump?
I'm sure there would have been some discussion. There is no public report at all. It is astonishing. What they would have conveyed, there is no mention of normalization by Saudi Arabia. There is no mention of the two-state solution. There's no mention of what Saudi Arabia needs to do, what Saudi Arabia has put forward to the Americans with regard to their future or the future of their bilateral relationship, namely the supply of state-of-the-art weaponry, the security agreement between Saudi Arabia and the United States, and this development of a civilian nuclear program. We don't have any mention of these crucial issues, which should have been the substance of the dialogue, find no mention in the public domain. Would they have been discussed? Very possible, very likely, but certainly we are not aware of what was said and what has been agreed to, if anything at all. Therefore, none of the issues that are agitating the region have found any mention in the public domain. As far as normalization is concerned, he says Saudi Arabia will do so in their own time. A very flippant, throwaway remark about a very serious subject. I'm not sure anything is going. My worry is that the investment the Americans have made, along with Turkey, in Ahmad al-Shara is likely to lead to a normalization of relations between Syria and Israel. And Israel and Netanyahu will use this to make to emphasize that they still have been successful in spite all the atrocities that they have perpetrated. They have been successful in getting another major Arab country onto their side.
On that note, let us hope peace becomes the agenda of all countries and the narrative of conflict and war pushed to the back burner. Thanks, sir, for sharing your perspective. We'll be back next time with another expert. Thanks for watching. Take good care of yourself. Keep your environment clean. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.